Adjusting kitchen cupboard doors. Huge topic. We get lots and lots of emails about it. You will see from the page, the project page that we have on this topic, that there's a few adjustments you can make to a door, and you've already seen a close-up of how out of alignment this door is. You can see that the bottom sticks further out than the top. You can see that there's a gap at the top. There isn't at the bottom. There's all sorts of, I mean, obviously we've adjusted this to suit this video. They're not normally this bad. However, sometimes they are. So what do we do to get that right? Now, the hinge itself has got a number of adjustments that can be made. There aren't any adjustments at the recess side of the hinge, the door side of the hinge. The hinge is cut into the door with these little bits here. These are called hinge cutters, and they will allow you to recess the hinge into the door if you're going to hang your own. For example, if you wanted to hang this on the other side for some reason or another, you can cut your own hinge holes using a hinge cutter. But there's once this section is fixed, there's no adjustment here. Okay, so all of the adjustment occurs on the cupboard side of the hinge, and in most cases there are two screws within the hinge arm itself, and there are two screws above and below holding the hinge to the cupboard. Now that's our first point of adjustment. You probably saw from the video, and I'm going to get the camera to zoom down as we're talking here, that this particular cupboard door is about 1/4 of an inch or 6 millimeters or so above the one to its right. So our first adjustment can be to get those leveled up, and to do that we need these two hinges. You'll notice that these screws on a close-up go into slots rather than holes, and those slots allow us to undo these screws slightly, top and bottom. Doesn't need a lot of movement. Okay, and that will allow us to move the door up there and down. Okay, so we can make that the first adjustment or the last adjustment we do. It doesn't really matter, but we have the ability to move that door up and down. So let's drop them down. Let's put them about halfway now, and tighten them up again so that we can see where we're going to go with this particular door. Okay. The other adjustment is in or out on this hinge, and this is the back screw. So by undoing this back screw, you'll be able to see that we can move the door, undo it a little more, in or out. So that, I mean, it can come all the way out, even in or out. So that slides on that particular, in this slot, backwards and forwards on that screw. So let's push it all the way in, because we know it was quite a long way out, and then we'll tighten that up again. So that can be done top or bottom, and that can line the doors up as they face. They should, most kitchen cupboard units come with a little rubber stop which sits on the door, so as you close the door, excuse the dogs barking in the background, but as you close the door it will sit on the cupboard frame itself. So the third adjustment that we're going to show you is the inside screw here, and that pushes the hinges away from the cupboard side itself, or pulls them away. Now we know at the bottom of this cupboard that it's overlapping this door here, so quite clearly we need to move this edge of the cupboard back towards the frame, and we do that by releasing this screw here. When this adjustment is done, I'm going to be taking this door off to show you how these screws work on their adjustment. Okay, so by undoing this screw you can see that the hinge has moved back towards the side of the cupboard. By tightening it again, if the camera can zoom in there, as I tighten it you can see the cupboard door is moving away from the side of the cupboard. I hope you've got that. So we'll move that back again. So by undoing that, we're moving the bottom of the cupboard back towards the side of the cupboard, and there we go. So that's going to allow us to shut the door at least, whereas we couldn't before. However, you'll notice that that's still got a bit of a spring on it. That's binding a little bit. So perhaps we've overdone it too much, because it's now touching the bottom of the cupboard next to it. So when you're making kitchen cupboard adjustment, you must take all of the doors into consideration so that you've got an even gap. And by minute adjustments on all of these screws, you can get each gap looking pretty good. So we need to open this one up again to move the cupboard away, the cupboard door away from the cupboard itself. And there we have it, we're nearly there. So we need to tighten this one up. That's because we didn't do that before as well. You'll notice on this particular cupboard that we have a slow close plunger as well. Okay, and there we have a cupboard door that's almost closing properly. So we have a fairly even gap there, but well, it's not too bad there. It's not too bad, but it does need to be lifted very slightly at the bottom. Now we can do that in two ways. We can lift the whole door up, but we don't really want to do that because it's okay here. So what we want to do then is just take this door in that way very, very slightly to raise that to the same level as this door. Okay, so we're going to screw this clockwise just to lift the bottom of that door slightly, so that you can see we're very close now to getting that up to its right level. Make sure that's tight, and we'll lift that a little bit more. Okay, now by doing that, we've opened that joint up. So what we're going to do is drop this door down a little bit, because you can see that that gap's not even. So I'm going to do that now by going clockwise on this hinge and moving that door over as well. So now you can see that we've got the doors perfectly level, with an even gap up the middle, an even gap down here, and an even gap down there. So by just simple adjustments, make sure we've got all of these screws tight. We'll move this top one in just a little more and make sure that's tight. So tighten up on all of our screws once we've got the door into the position we want, and you'll see that the cell closer is taking that door all the way in. We still need to bring this one out just a tiny little bit, which we're going to do now that's fully tight. And there we go. And you'll see that we've got fairly even gaps all the way along. And really it's just a question of minute little adjustments with the screws that are available to get the doors sitting properly. Sometimes the wall units have been hung a little bit out of square, sometimes the cupboards that they've been screwed together have pulled a little bit out of square, so it isn't necessarily a case of lining the door up with the frame. That quite often doesn't work. It's a question of visually making sure that we've got even gaps along the centre, an even gap along the top, and that might mean that the doors aren't absolutely square to the cupboard, but when they're all looking with good with uniform gaps, then they look square and they close properly. That's the important thing. So make sure you tighten up all the screws afterwards. So that's how we adjust the kitchen doors. Let's take this door off and have a closer look at how it works. Cut that one.